Welcome back to the RYOKO Show, the podcast that inspires and empowers you to create the life you truly love. I'm RYOKO. Today, we are diving into a topic that resonates with many of us, perfectionism and how it gets in the way to truly love ourselves. Today, I want to share a personal story in hopes that you embrace your true self, and after this show, you will also realize how much you actually love yourself, even if you are perfectionist or recovering from perfectionism, or if you are judging and criticizing yourself for not feeling good enough. Remember, nobody is perfect, and perfectionism is just a pattern we adopted to survive when we are children. It served us back then, but as adults, we don't need to hold on to it. I recently had an eye-opening conversation with someone who has been studying the mind, emotions, Buddhism, philosophy, and human behavior for over 20 years. I told her that as I move toward my dream, my perfectionism and inner criticism sometimes show up. And I avoid reverting to my old patterns of perfectionism or sacrificing my health or social life to achieve high performance like I did at university, work, and business school. I want to slow things down because I know that sometimes going slow is actually going fast. But this sense of hastiness still shows up, and I know that I can't get rid of this part of me, and instead I need to ask it to take a vacation, or if it doesn't leave me alone, then I really need to put it in the back seat of the car while I take the wheel of my car. But this sense of hastiness is something very uncomfortable, and this led us to this discussion of self-love. And during our conversation, I experienced a deeper embodiment of self-love that I've never felt before. It was really significant aha moment, and I thought it would be a great topic for a podcast episode because many of us struggle with perfectionism and common false beliefs such as I'm not good enough or I'm not lovable. As with many of our old beliefs, my perfectionism has its root in my childhood. When I was young, I was often told to be responsible, do better at school so I could go to a good high school, good university, get a high-paying job to have a secure life, which was a common expectation many of my parents' generation had for their children in Japan. I wasn't good at science in grade 7, especially physics. If I scored 75 out of 100, my mom would be really upset, focusing only that mark and disregarding any other good grades I got. I feel so much pressure to excel in physics, and I really struggled to understand the concept, and I was having a hard time. Over time, I internalized that belief that if I didn't achieve good grades, I wasn't lovable or safe because she would get really upset. And now I understand that her intentions were good because she wanted me to succeed in life. But back then, I was really afraid of being scolded. So this belief drove me to sacrifice fun and joy to study, excel at university, because I promised my mom that I would graduate in 4 years. She wasn't happy about my decision to leave Japan after high school to go to university in the States. So I wanted to finish university in 4 years to keep this promise, and because international tuition was not cheap. So fast forward, I found myself in Montreal, Canada in 2012. I decided to pursue a certificate in international business because I didn't have a paper to show that I have knowledge in international business, even though I worked in the same field in Mexico for about 4 years. So because I didn't have a paper to show that I have knowledge in international business, I thought that having both prior experience and certificate would help me advance in career. Even though my French wasn't fluent yet, I chose to do this certificate program in French because I wanted to improve my French. And studying international business in French while working full-time was incredibly challenging. I spent my first 3 years in Canada just working, studying, and I couldn't socialize, I couldn't build a network because I didn't have time. I spent all the time that I had either to work or to study. I graduated with honors, the top student in my program, but at a tremendous cost. When I submitted my final assignment and took my last exam, I felt a profound sense of burnout. And I heard the inner voice saying, I never want to do this again. If this is what it takes to be successful, then I'm okay not to be successful. My perfectionism, combined with language barriers, had taken its toll. So this experience left me associating success with hard work and burnout. I stayed in the same job for a long time because I feared anything that required more effort or hours. But despite my effort to avoid it, perfectionism still showed up and causing this anxiety and sense of hastiness whenever I wasn't moving forward toward my dream as quickly as I wanted. Well, my ego wanted. So there is this tug of war. One part still wants to take control, my perfectionism, and the other part wants to do things differently this time, at my own speed, having fun in life at the same time. So I shared my story with perfectionism with her. And after listening to my story, she made an insightful observation. She told me that I've spent my life chasing an unattainable carrot driven by an inner child who learned that safety and love depended on the perfect grace. So she pointed out that while my mother was the source of this pressure in my childhood, as an adult, I am the one doing the same thing. Real aha moment was that when she asked me why I was being so hard on myself. My response was that this became a pattern, a deeply ingrained way of being. And I didn't want to be hard on myself, but I just don't know any other way until recently. So it's still something that I am learning and learning to let go of this perfectionism. Then she said something that changed my perspective. She said, you judge yourself and criticize yourself because deep down, you truly love yourself. And when I heard that, I was like, how is it possible that I criticize and judge myself and I love myself so much? And she said, my inner critic sees my potential and believes in me, but it just doesn't know how to express. So hearing this was really eye-opening, and it made me realize that my inner critic, even though it's really harsh, comes from a space of love. It's part of me that wants the best for me. Even if it doesn't always show it kindly, I know this conceptually. I know that inner critic wants the best for me. But this time, hearing somebody say that to me, it really hit me. I was like, this hastiness is also love. So we laughed and we talked about how much I actually love myself. So when I acknowledge how much love I must have for myself to push so hard, and when I finally acknowledge and gave a space that I really love myself, I felt this sense of relief. And before my journey of personal transformation, I struggled with self-criticism and regret over past mistakes. I started mirror exercise where I would acknowledge my small wins each night. I end this acknowledgement by saying, I love you. But instantly, after I say, I love you, I hear another voice saying, no, you don't. So, but I kept this exercise for a month, but still I heard that voice saying, after I say, I love you, so Ryoko, I love you. Then I hear, no, you don't. But I kept going, and maybe like 3 months later, this voice started to fade out. But that conversation brought a really sense of relief that I feel like self-love isn't just about accepting the parts of ourselves we like. It's also about embracing the parts that judge us. And I begin to see my inner critic not as an enemy, but as a misguided ally. The ultimate takeaway from this conversation was really powerful. When I judge myself, instead of spiraling into further self-judgment, saying like, oh my God, I judge myself again. And I never learned, like, when will I stop judging myself? So instead of saying this, I can say, oops, I judge myself again. So let me step out of this and see from a distance, what can I say to myself instead of judging? So this way I can separate myself from the judgment and approach it with humor and compassion. So instead of going like, oh my God, I'm still judging myself, I can say, oops, I judge myself again. So there is this lightness to it. So self-love is a long journey, and it's not just about parts that we already appreciate. It's about embracing every part of ourselves, including the parts that judge and push us, and loving ourselves even when judge ourselves. So by making light of this inner critic's harshness and understanding its origin, we can foster deeper and more compassionate relationship with ourselves. So to recap, we explored the link between perfectionism and self-acceptance, self-love. We uncovered ways to overcome self-criticism by fostering awareness, compassion, and humor. By challenging beliefs and embracing imperfections, we pave the way for deeper sense of self-love. Remember, self-love is a journey. It's not only you're appreciating your accomplishments or progress, you appreciating yourself for just existing. And not only the good parts, but the parts that you don't like. And even when you judge, you love yourself, the parts that judge you, so that you don't go like, oh my God, I am still judging, I am not learning, and then you judge the parts that judge you. So this goes like a vicious cycle. Remember to step back and see from distance. And if you know someone in your life who is struggling with perfectionism, share this episode with them. Continue with this path of self-discovery and self-love, and be kind to yourself. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, rate, and review. And if you haven't already, go to the show note and grab the free guide to take the first step to transform your life. Well, until next time, be kind to yourself and keep shining.